Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. It's a double header battle report for you this time, as I recorded a couple of games from our November meetup that we had in Nightly Gaming in Bathgate. Now, I didn't have a battle report for you last week because last week my old back decided it was going to go like a knife behind the shoulder blade every time I moved. I tried to paint through it and it made it 100 times worse. So no sleep, never mind no painting or gaming. And then I got a case of labyrinthitis, which I've still not shifted. You might hear a bit of congestion. So I've not been doing much, other than attending the event. I've not been doing much for 2 weeks, so I'm getting the shakes to get on with something myself. I am working through this, if you can actually read that. Spearhead Force. Got a lot of painting done, got some good videos taken to make a nice guide for you, and I would probably have that already, but there you go. And I would probably be recording a battle report with this box set next week, but that's just going to have to wait. But stay tuned, guys, because I'm going to fight a game with this as it comes in the box at 100 points. So hopefully that'll be good. Or interesting. So anyway, back to this report. Now, there was a few call-offs at this. There was a couple of guys away at Warfare, but we had 6 guys there playing plus myself. There was 2 Yank players using the Bulge lists, which was good to see. And then every German player, for some reason, decided they were going to play SS. Everything from tanks to a mix of tanks and grenadiers to just nothing, in one case nothing but panzer grenadiers and guns. It was a bit weird, but Jamie likes his interesting lists. So I decided to follow 2 of Peter's games because he brought a formation of, well, a force made up of a formation of Hellcats and of battle-weary rifles. So we're going to follow those games. Now the first one is against Tom. He's using his SS Panzer Grenadier list, which I think you may have seen in the last meetup report. And the mission is nice and simple, it's no retreat. So we're going to start with that. And I'll take you over to the commentary now. A little word about the lighting. Nightly Gaming has got a huge frontage and the light pours in. And at this time of year, especially with the sun being so low, it's got some wacky shadows, but don't worry, they don't last very long. It's kind of like authentic bulge lighting. That's the best way of looking at it. And once the shadow went around the corner, it was fine, except it was into authentic bulge temperatures at that point, which didn't do me any good whatsoever. But you know, Nightly Gaming is enormous as a venue. I've never been in a venue like it. They've got 4 floors and each floor is gigantic. So they're taking a bit of time to get it all together, and that includes the heating. But we don't mind, it's a great place and we hope it can thrive. Anyway, back to the game. So Peter has 2 formations, the Hellcat and the battle-weary infantry. The Hellcat formation has a HQ of 2 utilities, 2 platoons of 4 Hellcats, and then 2 security sections. The infantry has got their HQ, 2 full platoons and 1 short platoon of the battle-weary infantry. They've got a mortar platoon and a platoon of 3 57mm anti-tank guns, and with some extra artillery support in the form of 4 105 Shermans. Let's have a look at Peter's deployment. So you can see the 2 company commands down there, an infantry platoon, mortar platoon, short infantry platoon, another infantry platoon. Then you can see the 57mm tank guns square in the front of that objective, and in reserve we have the 1 platoon of 4 Hellcats with the minefields off to the side there. Now on to Tom's list. He's brought his SS list again, so he's got Stug formation with a Panther platoon, and a platoon of Stugs and company HQ of 2 Stugs. He's got Panzer Grenadier formation with a dismounted Panzer Grenadier unit, mortar half-tracks, a scout Panzer Grenadier unit in half-tracks, allowing 2 armoured half-tracks for the Stug formation just to stop them from breaking. And this is what he's going down. There's one objective there, and then one deep way past the church there behind the line of minefields too, and he's going to be advancing, it looks to me pretty much like straight ahead. A couple of ranged in markers on both sides. There you go. And there's also some men in that church, by the way, so he's going to have to deal with them. But we're ready to start. Tom's first turn, he is screening his advance with his lighter elements, as you can see, including the infantry moving out and spreading apart a bit as well. But everything else is kind of hanging back. He's keeping his scouts out there on the far side just as a bit of a reserve force just now, whilst he pushes in towards that nearest objective. So in terms of shooting for the first turn, it wasn't very much. He used his artillery. His mortars got ranged in on the 3rd attempt. Quite a few potential hits, but no actual casualties there because it was the 3rd attempt. And all the other shooting that happened from direct fire was against gone to ground. Careful guys, so nothing meaningful there. Peter's turn 1, he has unpinned the infantry and the anti-tank guns and got reserve first roll, which is always good. And then he's brought on his 105 Shermans so they can start firing bombardments, and in the meantime his mortars have ranged in but got a hit but caused no damage to the hammer cars. Mortars are going to struggle to do anything other than get a bail there really. And Peter's anti-tank guns don't like those armoured cars sniffing around their flanks there, so they're going to rattle off as many shots as possible. These guys will still be gone to ground because of the scout rule, and only 1 hit out of all those dice as a result. They are aggressive but at long range and gone to ground. And there is a slight chance of getting a bail here on a 6, but no. So Peter is rolling for a kill and successfully gets his firepower, so there's 1 less armour car. The armour car passed its last stand the next turn, and Tom is keen to push it on to reduce the likelihood of any ambush from that wood, because he now wants to make his move towards the objective. You can see on the screen there it's getting really close. So everything's piling forward now, well, almost everything. Panthers, Stummels, infantry, you can see everything getting lined up to put in as much disrupting fire as possible, and the Stugs are going to stay put, as do the half-track scouts. German shooting, they managed to kill a bazooka with artillery. That was all, but that's still a very valuable kill considering he wants to launch an assault next turn. So the Panthers are firing. The Stummels, I think, did they follow me to get into position, so they're not firing, but the Panthers are going to try and complete a bit more wearing down on these infantry, and they managed to get 1 hit only but from an MG, but believe it or not Peter failed to save, and then Tom got a 6. So Tom wants to kill the bazooka. Peter's thinking, what do I do here? I'd rather take the hit on the guy to the front because that would mean no assault. He tries his mistaken target, failed it, and also failed his save and throw, so he's looking a little bit vulnerable out there. So Peter launched his assault. The Zook fired defensive fire. It needed a 5 to hit because it's pinned and there's concealment, so no hits in defensive fire, and then this poor guy took a couple of hits and was clobbered, which allowed the whole platoon to make a consolidation move, pushing a couple of guys out of the railway station in the process. Peter's starting step, that platoon infantry didn't unpin, which is kind of important, I think. The Hellcats decided we now have to pop our ambush, staring down those tigers. Peter is paid for the high velocity AP, by the way, so he's got anti-tank 13. Now, he's rolling for reserves, and he gets another reserve, so more Hellcats coming. The Hellcats are coming on to support the other platoon that's doing the ambush, and they're both firing up quite a narrow channel at those panthers. Peter wants to clobber those panthers with that mass of Hellcats without worry about return fire from the Stugs that are still quite far back. So he's putting down a smoke screen so that he can do a bit of damage and have less fire coming back at him. So the 105s ranged in on these half tracks here, the Stummels. They've got anti-tank 90s guys, so they can hit little Hellcats, and they managed to bail one out, which isn't too bad to be honest. But the Zook managed to kill one, which is a bit cheeky. So one bailed, one destroyed, and then these anti-tank guns got 3 hits, but Peter failed 3 firepowers. One of these had to do a double bail check, but they're all survived, so they're sitting there bailed. This is what Tom has been dreading, the Hellcat anti-tank 13 ambush at short range with concealment, so looking for 4s to hit, and that'll be 8 dice, so this could be quite a few saving throws coming up, folks. Let's see what Peter gets, and oh my goodness me, 1 hit. So you can imagine at the moment Tom is fist pumping the air silently, invisibly so to speak, and anti-tank 13 against front armour 9, that's just a match. And does Peter manage to get a bail? He gets a 4, so 1 bail out of that potentially devastating round of shooting. Now it's over to the reserve Hellcats. They're only going to get 1 dice each at long range, so they're going to be looking for 5s to hit, and there's only 1 hit. So Tom has got to decide if he wants to do mistaken target onto the bailed one, and he does. So he's just got to roll his dice. Obviously Tom takes a while to think about things and he does it, and he easily passes his save. So out of all that shooting, all that potential nastiness, there's only 1 bailed panther. With all those panthers still alive, Peter is scooting back into long range. Tom's starting step, the armour car ran away, but he's done his job by now. The panther didn't get back in, unfortunately, but the 3 Stummels did, and the Stummels with the anti-tank 9 are very effective against the lightly armoured Hellcats. Now it's time for Tom to get really focused on that objective. The panthers have closed in tight, the infantry are moving up, ready for an assault of their own against the wood, and then the sort of reserve infantry almost that he's been keeping back are moving over to join the push, and the company command Stugs are moving up to support the panthers. They may need some help with motivation rolls, especially perhaps in the assault phase. Tom's recognised that he's fighting down a very narrow gap, so he's going to use his smoke bombardment from the mortars to cut off all that shooting that could be coming back at him from the Hellcats. Tom's main focus for this turn is the assault, so there's not a lot of shooting. The panthers and the infantry can shoot. Other things such as the Stummel are blocked by moving teams, but he's just going to look to try and get pins on that infantry platoon beside the train station, and didn't get a lot of hits at all, just 4 hits, but he can move in with his infantry now, start preparing the assault before thinking about his tanks. So the infantry assault went in and easily dealt with the bazooka, but the reluctant guys, you know, they're up for it, so they go running in and do a bit of a counter attack, and then Peter rolls 2 1s to hit. So we need a motivation from the fearless guys, and what do the fearless guys do? They do stick around, so they're going to close in with their very good 3+ assault to clobber these guys, and they successfully do. Peter's just got to figure out where his platoon commander is going to go, somewhere close to where the company command would be useful, but he's kept him out in the wood, and he's deciding, am I going to go in? Oh no, there you go. Replacing a guy further over, closer to the company commander, and he's choosing whether or not he's going to go back in for the assault, and he makes it. only one base going in. And he goes, can he kill something in the assault? Yes, he finally gets one. But Tom can counter-attack again. He manages it, closes in, and that'll be the end of that, folks. And during the break-off, Peter is getting pushed back a little bit further from that objective beside the train station. So that reluctant infantry platoon beside the train station didn't unpin, with the company command to help them out. They needed a 5+ though. Reserves arrive. I think this is the last of them, the security sections. They've got lots of 50 cals though, so they could contribute. These infantry are moving out of the church. That's the short infantry platoon, moving up towards the critical point on the battlefield at this moment. So the Hellcats can't really shoot anything because of the smoke, so they're moving into position to cover that critical area next turn. The 105s are moving up so they can fire over open sights, and the company command has joined the 2 Hellcat platoons for some motivation. The only shooting was from the HQ, the infantry HQ, who moved into the church and used their SMGs but didn't get any kills. In the starting step, the infantry unpinned, the Panther got back in. So the infantry have moved towards the railway station looking to get that critical assault in against these reluctant infantry. The Panthers are moving in for the assault too, company command keeping close behind them, and the Stugs at the back are also rolling up to support. So lots of shooting to do. Those juicy targets off in the open infantry is too hard to resist, so they were bombarded, lots of hits but only one casualty. And then the Stummels don't like this anti-tank gun. It failed a couple of saves, and then Tom passed firepower, so one of the 2 anti-tank guns that could be counter-firing, or rather defensive firing, has been destroyed. Another Stummels fired at a 105 with no success, and then the Stugs are splitting the fire between the 105 and the Hellcats that are in line of sight. There's a big lump of Panthers in the way, but nothing really happening there. Tom's looking to do some pinning here. The infantry only got 2 hits on the company command in the railway station there, and the Panthers were firing at the guns, but remember the guns didn't shoot last turn, so they were gone to ground, so there wasn't any hits. But Tom is still sending those Panthers in against 4 dice of counter fire, and there are 4 hits on the 3 Panthers, so the worst possible outcome. Swings and roundabouts in terms of luck for the Yanks in this game. So they're just working out where they're going to apply these hits, and then Tom will have to make his saves. So one took a double hit and failed, and other ones, this is going to side armour guys, so you're talking 10 against 5 here, so that's another couple of fails. So they're not going to make contact, and then we need firepower. So first one is that'll be a bail, second one is a kill, and third one is a kill. So there's one still alive, and don't forget there's also actually a Panther back beside the hedge, so there's still 2 tanks in that platoon, and 2 of them are dead. But I think Tom felt as though he had to go for it, and if his luck was in, it probably would have worked out against these reluctant guys. Tom's still got that red mist of assault in his eyes, and his aggressive rated guys go charging in against the church, but all the various counterfire there results in 7 hits, and a couple of bases died. They failed their saves, and that effectively has brought the assaulting season to an end this turn. So Peter unpinned his infantry. Remember, they've got an okay unpinning role. It's more the counter-attacks that they're not so good at. And the one platoon of Hellcats failed the splits. It's the one that ambushed originally. So that's a bit unfortunate for the next turn of shooting. The other platoon is okay though. And then you can see the security sections moving over. Now Peter's shooting. The infantry, the SS infantry there, took a bucket loads of hits, loads and loads of hits, but all made their saves. The anti-tank guns shot the Stugs, but didn't even get a lot of hits, so no effective shooting there. The platoon of Hellcats that failed the Blitz also went for the Stugs and got no luck, not a lot of hits once again. The other platoon that moved last turn managed to kill the Bailed Panther. The 105 Shermans ranged in on that big lump of half-tracks and Stugs. Lots and lots of hits, but the only kill they got was against the Stug, but that's not too bad. Tom's motivation, the infantry unpinned, but even with the help of the company commander, the Panther ran away, so no luck again for Tom. So Tom's keeping the pressure on. He's rolled up his remaining Stugs and half-tracks, keeping his infantry close to that objective as well beside the train station. He's going to try and clobber what Peter has around there, but the artillery doesn't do anything effective. I think it didn't range in. Tried to get that far side of the train station. The Stugs managed to get a couple of hits, but only bales on the Hellcats, and all the other shooting, direct fire shooting, there was ineffective. The half-tracks, however, managed to get 9 hits and 5 kills on the infantry, so it might be looking good beside the train station. Thomas launched his assault into one bazooka and lots of rifle and submachine gun fire, and the bazooka destroyed one half-track. Many other half-tracks had potential bales, but one had a potential kill. Peter got a 6, destroyed it, and that ended the assault, killing one of the passengers in the process. In Peter's turn, everything went well for motivations. There's only one anti-tank gun left. I can't remember when another one died, but it stayed. And then the 105s and security sections moved. The infantry beside the train station dug in. For Peter's shooting, the 105s missed the Stummels. The infantry beside the church took an absolute hammering from so many different weapons, but they're still hanging about. They're quite happy. But the Stummel survived the 105s. The first platoon of Hellcats destroyed the company HQ. The second platoon fired at the other Stug and managed to miss it, leaving the 57mm, and it managed to kill it. So Tom's running out of troops and we're running out of time in the game. So we tried one last assault by Tom to see if he could take the objective, but the same thing happened. The MG fire and bazookas managed to destroy the incoming assault. Well, that game kicked off a bit later due to transport delays. I think it was really just getting to a critical point where one side or the other was going to win. With a bit of luck, if Tom could stay alive, based on the poor counter-attack rating of the Yanks, maybe Tom could just win an assault because it was right on top of the objective and push Peter's Yanks away. But I think on the balance of things, it was probably more likely that Tom was going to be just beaten down past a sort of critical mass level by all those remaining Yanks, and just not going to be strong enough to even get an assault in. But hopefully it was a good game for you. The Hellcats, maybe not the like a head-on clash of tanks against tanks, but where they did get shooting, they did start doing a bit of damage, and you could certainly see that their veteran status was helping keep them hard to hit in the game. And the reluctant infantry, well, they stuck around. The company command in particular stuck around and did enough damage on the way in, perhaps due to the size of the platoons supporting each other with the anti-tank guns there as well, did enough to fend off any assaults that may have threatened their low counter-attack rating. So on to the next game after a quick look at some of the other tables.
I'm just going to go smoke if I should. You please continue.
I'll get Frank to, if I don't have movement to keep it, I'll get Frank to...
How many days for you? certainly managed to get a lot of stuff on the table, Jamie.
Oh, like I said, it was the biggest lot I've come across.
And you're hitting threes, are you? You're aggressive, I think.
Yep.
Right, so you've
So shooting, all it's going to be is these and that into those. So three shots from them, 2 shots from them.
right enough.
Conceal it on the ground. So the Panthers, no, and then the Stugs.
Quite a lot. It's quite a lot of stuff.
That's it.
It's quite a big ad. The mission for the second game is Into the Unknown. It's a meeting style engagement. You'll see both sides have fairly small deployment zones, and outside of the deployment zones there's a couple of smaller objective zones, and the opponents will place the objectives adjacent to their opponent's deployment zone. Both players have to defend the objectives beside them, but then cross the table and take an objective. Now Laurence has deployed his 2 platoons of infantry sort of on the flanks of his deployment zone, heavy machine guns plus company command in the woods there, anti-tank guns on the corner of the deployment zone. See the infantry there ready to move forward. So he's ready to move forward to defend his objectives and potentially attack. And then he's got his 88s and his Hummels behind. Now his 88s have got the artillery card, so he can use them as artillery too. And here is Peter's deployment. You can see his anti-tank guns and the point of the deployment again, and similar layout to Laurence in that he's got infantry on the flanks ready to move to the objectives. All his Hellcats security sections, in fact it looks like the whole Hellcat formation is in reserve, and in reserve for Laurence he's got 3 Tigers and 2 Pumas. So that's them ready to start. Peter's got a first turn, so no artillery, so he's moving his infantry out, his anti-tank guns out, and repositioning his 105 Shermans. Not much he can do in the way of shooting this turn. Laurence is matching Peter with infantry moving out on the flanks and anti-tank guns taking up position in the centre. Laurence is going to be firing first. He's going to be using artillery. The Hummels ranged in on the road. Got some potential hits and kills, but no failed saves. And then the 88s using the artillery card are ranged in on the infantry moving towards the river there. A few hits once again, but no kills, but that's certainly enough to get them pinned. In Peter's turn, the infantry by the river failed to unpin. They also failed to dig in, which is a bit unfortunate. The anti-tank guns did unpin, and then Peter is just moving forward all his elements that are free and able to do so. See that short platoon is crossing the river. The other platoon near to the camera is just holding the objective a bit. Then the 105s ranged in, got 2 hits on the guns, but they saved. The mortars managed to get 1 hit on the infantry in the open, once again, just like the guns, failed to save, so 1 dead. These infantry here by the wood failed to unpin but dug in. The anti-tank guns unpinned, and as you can see they're moving up with the heavy machine guns in support. The other platoon is moving up too. Just now they're calculating some artillery fire. That's still what Laurence is really able to dish out at the moment. Now both of Peter's infantry platoons have been hit. One repeat bombardment by the 88s, the other by the Hummels, that's the one nearest the road, and both platoons got pinned and lost just the 1 base of infantry each. Peter's starting step, both these infantry platoons did not manage to unpin, and neither did they manage to dig in, so they're just going to be sitting there for a bit, taking some more artillery fire. But Peter did get his first reserve dice. So Peter has this platoon dug in, not dug in, and then the one on the edge is still not dug into, and then a crazy advance I think he just wants to go at maximum possible speed with a dash move with his reserves, but they're coming on right in the face of those anti-tank guns. Now Peter's shooting was just artillery. There was one Pack 40 still under the 105 template, but it was missed. And the mortars, still with some infantry under the template, they managed to get some hits and a kill. So the Germans were okay for motivation. Heavy machine guns are moving up into those buildings. Infantry pushing on behind the hill with cover. These guys are just going to stay put. Then the platoon by the river there, they lost 3 bases to the repeat bombardment, and the platoon by the Table Edge lost just to 1 base. One of the utilities was killed by the Pack 40s, and the jeep was killed by the heavy machine guns, so there's only 1 utility left. In Peter's starting step, the utility, it stayed. The infantry straddling the river though still didn't unpin, the other ones did. No reserves this turn. Those guys didn't dig in again. They've moved off onto the hill, get some shots in. The utilities moved off to shoot some heavy machine guns, and it managed to kill one, and the mortars got a Shrek from that platoon too. On the far side of the table, the infantry managed to get quite a few hits, but no kills. And then the 105s tried to range in there to really bring the hurt, but failed to range in. Laurence's next turn, the infantry on the near side have unpinned, since most have moved into the wood. 1 on the objective. Tigers have arrived. These guys tried to dig in where they were, but didn't manage it. Shooting this little platoon is getting smaller by the minute, and that utility has been bailed out by some 88 fire. And then heavy machine guns, anti-tank guns have tried to shoot up the 57 mils, but to no effect. Peter's starting step, the infantry survivors ran away, the utility ran away, the 57 mils didn't unpin. 2 out of 3 dice for reserves, so 2 platoons of Hellcats have arrived on table. Using a tactical after a blitz move, Peter has got around the side of those infantry in the open to try and do a bit of damage on them. Unfortunately though, lots of dice didn't result in any casualties. One of the anti-tankers has died to some mortar fire. The anti-tank guns fired up the road as well, but didn't really add anything to it. So not a lot of casualties on the Germans this turn. The last German reserves arrive, that's the Pumas. Now these infantry in front of the hill here, they managed to unpin, they didn't dig in, so Laurence burned a lucky card and managed to get them dug in. And then the Tigers are rolling up, and the company command has just moved over from the wood there, and that's about it for movement. German shooting, now the Hummels ranged in on this big lump of armour and mortars and managed to kill a 105 Sherman. So that could have gone better because a lot of top armour 0 tanks in that lump. So the 88s joined in as well, using the artillery card that Laurence paid for, and they just managed to get 1 bale on a Hellcat. They also pinned the mortars, but nothing else in the way of any damaging rolls. The Tigers fired up the road at the anti-tank guns, but 1 hit, but it saved. These guys managed 3 hits on those infantry on their flank, but they all saved as well. And the heavy machine guns fired down the road again at these anti-tank guns who just won't die because no kills. Peter's starting step, everything remounted or unpinned except for the 57 mils, and then the last reserves are going to be arriving this turn. And the Yanks are making a very definite move on this thinly defended objective. There's just, I think, maybe 5 SS Panzer Grenadiers around that. The reserves are coming in behind them there. So I'm not sure what happened with recording off all the shooting that turn, but basically the Yanks didn't kill anything that turn, but they have got themselves in a position to put a good push onto one objective. And this is a game where you're definitely not going to win it unless you push on for an objective whilst hopefully holding on to one yourself, but you do need a good balance of aggression in this game. The Pumas are moving up now in the German turn to support those infantry, and the Tigers are dashing towards the other objective, so we've got a bit of a race on. In terms of shooting, there wasn't much effective shooting going on this turn for the Germans either, folks. The artillery tried to do a bit of damage, but there was nothing successful. The heavy machine guns fired, but once again weren't successful. Anti-tank guns firing up the road, but not successful because these Yanks are at least careful. Anyway, both sides are now going for an objective, and there could be a bit of a race going on here, folks. Peter's closing in on that near objective. The infantry did have to unpin. They were hit by artillery, forgot about that, and the Hellcats are moving over that template to get in the attack. These other ones are going to try and get some shots on those Tigers. The other infantry there, you can see, are pulling back, going, oh no, Tigers, they're going for the objective. Peter's shooting. The mortars ranged in here got three failed saves, but then 3 failed firepowers, so those guys are still alive. The bazookas from his infantry had no luck onto those Tigers, neither did the Hellcats who were firing at them, but the 57 mils managed to kill a Pak 40, so they're still in the game. So the German held wood. The Yanks have managed to pin them and gone in. 4 bases going into assault, but all against one base at the front, just because they're in the column. Now the Germans killed 1 in defensive fire. The Yanks then killed 1 in the first round of combat, lost 2 to the German counter-attack, but then broke off. The Germans have a definite edge in motivation here compared to the reluctant Yanks. German starting step, the wood infantry unpinned, the infantry by the hill didn't, and the surviving Pak 40 passed its last stand. The Tigers and Pumas have got these infantry in a bit of a vice there beside the objective, so that's looking pretty tough for the Yanks. The Hummels managed to get 1 off the Hellcats, and an 88 managed to get another bale, and then the infantry in front of that wood there took an absolute hammering from the wood and from those heavy machine guns, and there's only 2 left. And you can see the infantry fared no better over this side of the table, so they've pretty much been caught in the open and shot down with machine gun fire. Peter's infantry here unpinned, and what is actually the company command that's left there managed to unpin too. So Peter's still trying to push on this objective with Hellcats, company command for them, the security section all moving up, and 1 other platoon of Hellcats joining the 105 mils to see if they can do anything against these Tigers. Peter's shooting. The Hellcats, the infantry, the company command, all together just managed to get 1 kill on the Germans defending that objective. And then over here, a bazooka managed to kill a Tiger, believe it or not. The 105s had a go, the Hellcats dashed, the 105s all missed, and a bazooka did it. So Peter has launched his assault against the objective. The Hellcats killed the defending base of infantry, and then the infantry broke off at that point, even though they're fearless. And then there was a lot of to and fro with the company command. You can see there's only 1 left from the Americans going into the fight. Went back and forward quite a few times with some really terrible rolls to hit on both sides until the Yanks eventually broke off. In Laurence's turn, he passed all his motivations, so they're still near that objective. The infantry have unpinned, the Pak is staying, and then you can see everything is concentrating on taking the objective where the Tigers are at, and then all the anti-tank guns, including the 88s, pointing at those poor Hellcats that are at the objective that's under threat. So the 88s are going to put some pain down onto the Hellcats, and there's not going to be much of them left by the end of it, folks. but unfortunately at this point I ran out of battery, so I don't have the final scenes to show you in the game, but I'm going to cover that in the recap, because to be honest folks, apart from some dice rolling over by the other objective, it's all over for the Yanks. Batteries, what a pain. I was actually charging the camera as I was going throughout the afternoon, but somehow the socket that I was using got turned off, and basically all you missed there really was the assault phase where the surviving infantry were crushed under the tanks of the Tigers, and as the Tigers were within 4 inches of the objective at the start of their turn, that was enough to claim the win for Laurence on that turn. Well, there you go. It ended up as a race, which is good to see with these sort of fair fight, meeting engagement type missions where somebody has to take an objective to win the game. You can't play it too cagey, or you'll run out of time. If you just want to destroy stuff coming in and then try and go out, you have to stick your neck out. So both players stuck their neck out at the same time, and Laurence managed to get in there just one turn before Peter. Basically, that's what it came down to. Now, the other games, let me think now. Laurence won his first game against a late Sherman company, not the veteran type, just a late Sherman company that Mark brought. And then Mark, he used that against Jamie in the second game and got a win as the attacker in that. Brian brought a British Churchill list, which he wanted to try out, but he didn't put any M10s in there, and that probably worked against him, because he won the first game against Jamie's crazy SS gun line, but in the second game against Tom's SS, the Panthers were just a bit too strong, whittling them down. It doesn't matter if you've got one tank with front armour 11, if you get enough hits, the tanks around it, even if it survives, the tanks around it are going to get destroyed. But if you'd had some M10s on the list, they may well have dealt with those Panthers. But first time for Brian using those British Churchills. So there you go folks, we've got a few Yank games on the go. Hopefully we'll have some more over the next few weeks. Got a couple of games lined up for next week, and unless I somehow don't recover from this labyrinthitis and the bad back stays away, I'll have Yanks for a game I reckon against Brian to try out the Spearhead force as a tabletop force to see if you can get that on the table and stand a chance of getting a win. So thanks folks, thanks for watching again, thanks to those subscribers again, and if you'd like to subscribe, hit the button to help us build the channel, and if you hit the bell button, I'll definitely see you on the next one.